economy, kind of to emulate one of his heroes, Lee Kuan Yew. But I'm afraid we still have a lot of unfinished business to get to the takeoff stage, which is talking about. Because takeoff is actually when the country has moved into a middle income, status. And on average, we have to accumulate GDP, which can enable every Ugandan to have at least 1,000 US dollars per annum. Right now, when you check the figures, we are about $600 per person. We had actually moved to about 700, but in the previous 2 years, couple of years, we've had some challenges in the economy, as we know, all of us Ugandans, and that has led to per capita incomes sliding back. But even then, you are talking about per capita income, but not household income.
Let's talk
as
about
it is distributed.
Yes, let's talk
because
about
distribution is quite critical.
Yes.
That even if we were to get the oil, because in a couple of years we might get the oil money starting to coming in, and all of a sudden you'll see our GDP accelerating almost at a geometric rate actually. And if they divide, then they may wake up and say, today we have achieved it.
Right.
We're
now,
already there.
That will be in some years to come, pertaining to the oil and gas industry taking off and helping the economy in the long run. But now we have the biggest contributor to our GDP and to our economy, which is agriculture. But during his address, he actually alluded to the fact that we still have over 68% of the Ugandan farmer practicing subsistence farming. And there's still a challenge, even if there are moves and pushes to try and get them to that level where they're now engaging in commercial farming, there's still issues. And he actually alluded to the lack of, proper family economics. What's your take on that, and how best can that be addressed?
First of all, agriculture is contributing about 25% of GDP.
Correct.
But employing 3/4 of the population, over 76% directly. When you bring in the indirect kind of employment, it comes actually to about 80%. But agriculture has been more or less stagnant in the previous 5 years. It hasn't been growing. It has kept at an average of about 3% per annum. And as a result of that, you find it's not difficult to see why many of those people in agriculture must be in subsistence. Otherwise, if they were in commercial farming, they would have been contributing to the GDP. Subsistence, we don't include it in the GDP when we are computing it. Now the first challenge Uganda has, not just the government, is how do we get the people who are in subsistence to move into commercial production and then move into manufacturing, because even agriculture itself is not an accelerator sector. It doesn't transform a country. Agriculture is just used as one of the pebbles to propel the economy into the modern sector, and that is mainly industry. So the bottom line is, what is the president communicating, what he's doing to get his government to actually, first of all, get these people in subsistence, practically move into commercial farming, and then propel them again, especially the younger people, to move into manufacturing. I haven't had that systematic government plan to do that.
But ideally, what would be the right strategy of moving these people into commercial farming effectively?
Yes, the right strategy is to provide incentives to them so that they see the reason to actually commercialize. Today there is no clear incentive for any farmer in Uganda to commercialize, because even those who have tried to commercialize have gotten their fingers burned, because there is no kind of infrastructure in place to stabilize farm gate prices such that their incomes can be smoothed throughout the season or throughout the year. Today you find that when it rains well and everybody goes to farm and we cultivate, then supply comes in, we get a bumper season, and there is no plan for evacuation of that supply to meet the demand abroad or within the region, such that our incomes, the prices which the farmers receive, do not fall, do not drop. Today, the price of maize was in the news the other day.
Right.
And we have been having this conversation for years. Myself, I remember, I've been part of a group which authored a paper, and we sold it actually. I remember I presented this to government in Chankwan's. They invited me, and I told them the only way we can do this to stabilize prices is if we set up agro-processing centers in every region of Uganda. These are not small units to process, but it is like a hub, and there is a team of other researchers that came in and joined us later from the Netherlands. Some Ugandans who have been doing their studies in the Netherlands, PhDs, masters in agro, value chains in other areas of agriculture, and we came up with a research which indicates that if the only way government can concentrate those small pieces they are trying to do here and there under Operation Wealth Creation is if they set up centers, such that at a center there is, first of all, post-harvest handling, first-class silos, first-class cold chains, such that a farmer, when he grows his fruits or his cereals, he knows that if the market price is not good, I have where I can keep them safely.
Correct.
And they don't rot, I don't lose money. Then at the same center, you put value addition. You put first-class transport facilities. Then you put also a marketing system, whereby it's a responsibility of government everywhere. Agrarian kind of revolutions are started by government. If you check all the countries which have transformed their agriculture through green revolution, the government has invested in areas which will provide the incentive to farmers to really die in the gardens, to feel that they have a reason.
What was their take on that particular proposal? Because I'm thinking, when we were having this discussion a few days ago, we saw that the only way that the farmer can benefit from what they're doing as farmers is value addition. So we need to provide this infrastructure for them. But what was the take? Because clearly it hasn't taken off.
The challenge we have, Mala, in this country is that we have almost ideas and correct ideas on almost everything. The problem is government does not implement things. They don't even listen. They hear. Because if someone was listening, they would move to do something, and you see that it is in the process being done, or even involving people who have ideas so that they can get implemented. But everybody just says, yeah, we need, and they speak normative. Everybody is speaking normative in this country. Normative is, we ought to do this, we should do that, we can add value, we should irrigate, but we don't move to act.
So
in other words, to walk the talk. The issue is implementation.
We are struggling with implementation. Still on his address, the President of the Republic of Uganda, Kaguta Yoweri Museveni, he actually alluded to the fact that we have surplus electricity. But yesterday we were able to catch up with some of the business people, manufacturers, and this is what one of them had to say.
In terms of cost of doing business, say for example, the cost of electricity for the small and medium enterprises is still high. When they're doing concession, it's only for the large enterprises. We believe that if small, and yet they're the biggest employers of the country today, if many of them are put into say for instance industrial parks, and they're given all these amenities to help them improve their production, it would really take the country to another level.
So electricity is a big discussion.
Big.
The president actually said that the only districts that now don't have electricity is Kotido and Kabong, and they're working on that just to make sure that these districts also access electricity. But the common person down there, someone who's trying to get into manufacturing, or they're actually in manufacturing, the biggest factor of production that they grapple with on a day-to-day basis is the rates of electricity. So if we have surplus, the president actually confirmed it, that we have too much electricity, then why are the rates so high for the person who is down there?
This actually has been the president's petty kind of talk over the couple of years. I've heard him saying we have surplus electricity, and even many people have bought into it.
Right.
But you know, it's a funny thing when you think about it, because economics says that once you have any item in a excess supply, then the prices of such an item would tend to go down.
Correct.
But of course we know that electricity is not in a competitive market. That happens in a competitive market. Electricity is almost a monopoly or oligopoly, if it could be anything to go by. Very few players are involved. And for that matter, the government, that's where we say that it made a big mistake of privatizing electricity. Of taking away the responsibility of managing that strategic resource and give it to private players who are looking for money. And these private players, right from the generator, the one who generated the electricity, to the one who's distributing it, government signed very, very funny contracts with them that even if now the electricity, we supply it in so many megawatts until such a time when we have succeeded in renegotiating these contracts, which to me I think is the only sensible thing to do. Let us bear whatever cost it can take. After all, you know, in economics, macroeconomics is just circular flow.
Correct.
The money which you give to this private sector will eventually come back to the economy. You can tax it and so on. So let the government get money, pay off these contracts which they signed at a point when you were desperate, because it's understandable. There's a time when Uganda was so bad off on electricity, around 2006 and before. We used to have 2 days of, you know, blackout. Somebody announces on radio that industrial area will be off for 2 days. So government was desperate. They signed these very bad agreements, and even if we increase the supply, the prices don't move.
Right.
So there is a need to renegotiate them such that the prices will reduce. But that talk that we have surplus electricity in a country where many people cannot afford the electricity, including manufacturers, including even us at domestic consumption, because even domestic consumption, parents are telling their children, switch off the security lights.
Right.
Now, you hear that controversy. It's a security light, but switch off. Why? Because the price is too high for electricity in Uganda. If you check our unit here, it is 10 times higher than the unit of electricity in the countries we want to compete with in the global market.
So what you're saying is that the only solution is for government to take charge, to go back and take control over electricity in the country.
Not only electricity, a number of strategic areas which they had privatized, including electricity, the railway, you know, business, including also even banking.
Correct.
You know, you can't have longer term projects financed by commercial banks. It can't work.
Correct.
So government has to get back into that space, those areas. Let private enterprise, you know, be in those things which are fast-moving goods. Let government not make bread or run a hotel or run matatus, whatever. But strategic areas of development, they are always a responsibility of the state. We call it industrial policy, for the state to enable the economy to move.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about a very important issue, and that's unemployment in the country. The current population stands at 40 million, and of course our growth rate in terms of the population growth stands at 3%, meaning by 2050 the population of Uganda will be at 1 or 2. Now, of course, with that, if you're already grappling with unemployment, meaning at that point it will be so huge. And issues like crime will now come into play, because you know the people who commit crime are not old people, they're young people. So how best can the government plan for these young people? We saw the president coming out to say that at the end of the day, unemployment is not so bad, because it shows that these people have gone through basic health, they've gotten immunization, they've gotten education. The issue is the jobs. So moving forward, how can we plan for the population that is growing at this high rate in terms of unemployment?
I don't know why we talk in the future tense. We're already there. We're already in the future.
Correct.
We're already in the midst of a crisis. All of what you are seeing going on in Uganda is what we have been talking about over the years. You know, Ugandans have been talking about a time bomb. We are sitting on a time bomb. I think the bomb has already detonated. Because when you look at the numbers out there, one job for every 500 qualified applicants, there's only one job. 499 educated, sometimes even skilled Ugandans don't have jobs. I hear sometimes people say the problem is skills. Ugandans are not skilled. I'm telling you.
So the issue is not in skilling?
Not even that. The truth of the matter, the economy is too small for Uganda's bulging population. First of all, the president is making a strategic mistake. He's encouraging Ugandans to produce more children. In the very speech he said, you know, Africa's problem is underpopulation. And I heard also his colleague in Tanzania saying the same. I think they sit in rooms, these leaders in Africa, and they say, let us produce. That's a mistake. As he's saying that they have immunized the children, which actually they have done in Africa, because the curves are going down of infant mortality and maternal mortality and so on. Health-wise, younger people have now grown up. Younger children are no longer dying. They used to die 20 years ago. So why do you encourage people at this point in time to still maintain the fertility rate?
So what you're saying is, if we are to solve this crisis of unemployment moving forward, and if we are to curb that growth rate, now that we know by 2050 will be 102 million people, the issue is the government needs to train people and talk to its people not to reproduce at a very high rate.
They have to give incentives, especially to younger ladies. Let every younger girl go to school. When they graduate, let government make it a responsibility of the state now to employ young graduate females. Because once, you know, educated younger people don't want to rear children. Because rearing children is a full-time job itself. And from there then, you move into creating productive jobs for the young males in factories. What will save Uganda is factory jobs. This, I hear a lot of people having strategic misconceptions, you know. They are what we call accelerator sectors in every society, in every economy. And industry is the primary one. Then these others like service, tourism and so on, they can bring in dollars, but they don't create productive jobs for the caliber of labor we have in Uganda, the skills, the education system, and even, you know, you are talking of educated youth, but many of them are not educated.
All right. So the issue of unemployment will only be sorted out with control of population. We must control population
and then employ, educate and employ the ladies.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
We've heard you loud and clear. Of course, we are sure that the government is listening and you're always in contact with them. So let's see if implementation is the problem. Let's see if this time round implementation is taken seriously and that we find solutions to the problems that are affecting our economy. That has been it for Morning at 10 TV. Be sure to catch us again tomorrow 6:30 to around 9 a.m. We'll have so much more for you. My name is Malaki Vilaudera. Have a blessed day.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
And